Bring in human rights lawyer David Haigh, who I'm sure was listening to this intently, David. Just go into a little bit more detail, because there was a lot of, obviously, legal language there. Just go into a little bit of detail about what that appeal court judge was saying.
Good morning to you both. I mean, effectively, it's a resounding rejection of Shamima Begum's attempt to come back to Britain and to fight her case there. And essentially what happened with the Court of Appeal, they've upheld the decisions of the Special Immigrations Appeal Court earlier. And this is, a long journey that Ms. Begum's been on. And it's certainly, though, not the end of the court battles. And it certainly was a resounding rejection. But now we look towards the Supreme Court, and I'm sure her legal teams will be doing that. So it's not the end.
Right, so what exactly are her options? The Supreme Court, European Court of Human Rights?
Yeah, so the first thing that she would need to do is go to the Supreme Court. Now, you can make an appeal to the Supreme Court if it's a matter of public interest. And it could be easily, well, not easily, I think it would be able for her legal team to argue that it is. She's already been to the Supreme Court before. This is a long-running legal battle that's bouncing between courts. That would be the first step, to go to the Supreme Court to show that the appeal decision that we've just heard is wrong, and that the Supreme Court needs to hear it because it's a matter of public interest and on a point of law. If she fails, then she could then go to the European Court of Human Rights. So you can imagine, I mean, we've seen with various cases like Rwanda, etc., how long these legal processes take. So this is just going to continue going on and on. I would imagine they will do both, and I would imagine, this is going to go on for several years more.
David, who's paying for all this?
Effectively, we are, the British taxpayer. She has legal aid. I think it was 9 years ago that she went to Syria, and I think the legal battle's been 5 years. I think it's been going on for. So legal aid. So you can imagine the number of lawyers that have been involved, the level of the lawyers that have been involved, and the expense that we, the British taxpayer, are being put to. So you've got two more steps now. After this, it will be, I'm sure they will appeal to the Supreme Court, and if that's allowed and they lose that, it will be the European Court of Human Rights.
And if it went to European judges, do you get the feeling that the outcome may be different, bearing in mind our fractious relationship with the continent, or at least the European Union?
Ben, I'm not sure that it would, actually, because if you look at the actual rights, it depends what they argue, but if you look at whether or not you can basically cancel someone's citizenship, when you look at the rights that are set down in the European Human Rights Convention as opposed to the UN, it's not really there as a right that's given. They would have to look at one of the other areas. So it's not very clear. Now, most of the judgments in the cases that have gone before the European courts have been about people that want to be a citizen of a country, rather than the other way around, where it's been taken off. So it's unclear. It might actually be one occasion when you see the European court, backing a decision of the English courts. But let's see. But it's certainly not clear that I don't think that the European Court would be in favour of the application.
Mm.
In making that judgment, is the appeal court also saying that they deem her a threat to the nation, or is that not their call?
I think that's not what their decision is. Their decision is their role is to find out if the lower court made any mistakes, if they followed basically the law and the procedure, if they made any errors in law or if they made any errors in fact. It's not about, and it's at the time of that decision. So it's not if there's new information now, if there's new evidence, it's at the time that the lower court made the decision. Were they correct in doing so? Were there any errors? Ms. Begum's lawyers set out 5 grounds, and we just heard that the appeal court universally, resoundingly rejected all of those. And a detailed judgment, just even orally, I mean, we'll get the written one later, as to why each of those was rejected. So it's a very, very clear rejection of her attempts to come back to Britain. I'm sure her lawyers will appeal to the Supreme Court, or at least try to get permission to do that, and this will go on. And I'm sure we will all be back here discussing this times again.
And David, in the meantime, where is Shamima Begum going to be? Is she just languishing in that refugee camp in Syria still?
She is, and I mean there's effectively kind of almost two two stories going on here. One was the cancellation of her citizenship, and one was her attempt to come back to the UK to fight that. That was something that she wasn't allowed to do. So she was deemed obviously a security threat and wasn't allowed to come back to fight that, and had to do that from a refugee camp in Syria, where she remains and will remain until something changes.